here. Good to see all of you. First we'll look at the handout here, I guess. So you might go to the page with what looks like this, with the different kings of Israel and Judah listed kind of vertically there. You might look first down at the bottom left. I wrote the books of the major prophets here in the Old Testament, and then right to the right of that, I wrote the books of the minor prophets. And the way I understand it, the major prophets were grouped together and put in what they thought was in order, and then the same with the minor prophets, even though they kind of stitched together, you put them together. And I was trying to make sure we hadn't skipped anything. That was kind of my main intention. And just looking back, it looked like we finished 2 Kings last March of 2025. And according to my records, we then went to Amos, and then it took us about a month. Then Brother Stephen, I think, talked on Obadiah one Wednesday, and then we went to Hosea. And then last June, we went to Isaiah and just wrapped that up. And so I was going to jump to Micah. If someone remembers us covering Joel or Jonah, maybe we did cover them, but if not, I would kind of propose after we finish Micah, maybe go back and pick up Joel and Jonah, just so I don't want to skip anything, it's the main thing. Kids thought maybe Andrew had covered Jonah, I don't remember that, so maybe we did cover Jonah. But so we'll cover Micah starting now in the next several Wednesdays, and then maybe bump back to Joel and then kind of decide to go from there. But the picture here is, I need this occasionally. I forget which king was where and when and all of that. And so it's kind of a nice graphic here. You can see the kings of Israel here on the left side, and then the kings of Judah on the right side. And they have, it's kind of color coded. So if a king was evil, it has a black kind of timeline for him. If he was godly, it's gold, and if it was mixed, it was gray. I didn't go back and validate all of this. I assume that it's pretty close. You might notice all the kings of Israel are black. So we're going to see the consequences of that, I think, here in Micah. And then kind of mixed reviews here on the kings of Judah. And also notice here, it has the prophets listed, I think, from when they thought they may have lived or prophesied during that time with the corresponding kings. And some of the prophets, it tells us clearly, and others not so clearly. Micah is pretty clear. He makes it clear who the kings were in Judah when he was writing, and so we can pinpoint him. And he was right kind of in the same era as Isaiah. So I guess that's why we're flowing from Isaiah to Micah, because kind of a similar timeline. And if you look at where Micah is there on the right side, you can see that corresponds with Israel being the northern kingdom being taken captive by Assyria. And so undoubtedly, as we'll see, a lot of the things that Micah speaks of, relates to that, because that was certainly a big part of what was going on during the time of Micah. So there's that visual. If you'll flip it over, there's more of a cartoon, and most of the books that I read other than the Bible have pictures, so this helps me. And so this is a graphical representation of Micah. Again, I didn't validate all of this as 100% accurate, but I thought it was kind of a good visual. And the top left, maybe focus there on the top left, you can see the northern Israel, it says, and it shows a city, Samaria, with a guy standing there with his arms crossed on it. Maybe that's the king in Israel. And then there's a wall, and then there's Jerusalem and the southern kingdom, or Judah. And there's a man standing there on top of it. And then it has a man standing there off to the side, quoted Micah 3, verse 8. I guess that's presumably Micah, with one of the strong verses here. And then you can see out to the right there, you see Assyria and Babylon, with their chariots and armies and things kind of bearing down on Israel. And so, again, that's kind of a lot of the warnings we see from Micah are going to relate to that. And then the kind of pictures here on the bottom, it says chapter 1 and 2 is God appears, And then it says, but why? And then it shows leaders and prophets. The leaders and prophets were pretty sorry, as we'll read here. But then there's hope and restoration at the end of chapter 2. And then you can kind of see the following chapters' summaries here. And so the objective tonight is to get to chapters 1 and 2. So we'll see God appear. We'll see some pretty serious judgments, some condemnation of leaders and the prophets there in Israel and in Judah. And then we'll see shepherding of the remnant at the conclusion tonight. So there you go. You can study that later if you like, or for now. So now turning to Micah, chapter 1 of Micah. First verse says, the word of the Lord that came to Micah the Morasite in the days of Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah, which he saw concerning Samaria and Jerusalem. So again, back there in our picture, it shows Samaria and the northern kingdom and Jerusalem and the southern. Those are both the central hub, the religious hubs, I guess, of the two, the split kingdoms there. And it says clearly here that Micah was from Morasite, which I think is a city in Judah, somewhat southwest of Jerusalem. And it mentions the kings that he was lived and prophesied during, and that was Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, all kings of Judah. And just to maybe refresh your memory on who they were, I'll read a little bit from 2 Kings chapter 15, verse 32 about Jotham. It says, 25 years old was he when he began to reign. He reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. And he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord. He did according to all that his father Uzziah had done, howbeit the high places were not removed. The people sacrificed and burned incense still in the high places. He built a higher gate to the house of the Lord. So he did what was right in the house of the Lord, but just left those high places and some of those idol worshiping areas to continue there in the southern kingdom during his reign. And then Ahaz was not so good. 2 Kings chapter 16, it says 20 years old was Ahaz when he began to reign. He reigned 16 years in Jerusalem, I guess like Jotham, and he did not that which was right in the sight of the Lord his God, like David his father. But he walked in the ways of the kings of Israel, all the kings that had the black marks by their names. Yea, and made his sons to pass through the fire, according to the abominations of the heathen, whom the Lord cast out before the children of Israel. So he was not good at all. Even had sacrifices of his children, it seemed. One of the most heinous acts we read about from some of these kings. And then lastly, Hezekiah, the third king mentioned. Hezekiah was good. 2 Kings chapter 18 says, 25 years old was he when he began to reign, and he reigned 29 years in Jerusalem, 29 years. And he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord, according to all that David his father did. He removed the high places and brake the images and cut down the groves and brake in pieces the brazen serpent that Moses had made. For unto those days the children of Israel did burn incense to it, and he called it Nehushtan. He trusted in the Lord God of Israel, so that after him was none like him among all the kings of Judah, nor any that were before him. So he was about as good as he became kings of Judah. He did that which was right in the sight of the Lord. He got rid of a lot of the idolatry here in Judah. So these are the three kings at the time in which Micah lived. And I think a lot of what we read tonight is going to play out in the lifetime of Hezekiah. But Micah is foretelling of it, so maybe he's telling it in the reign of Jotham or Ahaz, not sure. But I think what we will see here, these prophecies that he was prophesying of, played out in, I think, roughly the reign of Hezekiah during that timeline. Okay, verse 2. Hear, all ye people, hearken, O earth, and all that therein is, and let the Lord God be witness against you, the Lord from his holy temple. For behold, the Lord cometh forth out of his place, and he will come down and tread upon the high places of the earth, and the mountains shall be molten under him, and the valleys shall be cleft is wax before the fire, and as the waters that are poured down a steep place. So God is coming down out of this place, it says, and it's a terrible sight here. Mountains are just melting away like wax. Valleys are just splitting wide open, and they're just the leftovers are just running down the hill like a swift river in the presence here of God. It says God is going to be a witness against him. That's troubling, knowing who God is and what he stands for. It's going to be trouble for both the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, as we see here in a moment. And I think in the picture here, it talked about this is likened unto God coming down to Mount Sinai. Maybe that's some of the imagery here that is intended. But this is God coming down, and it's not going to be good. And this is why. Verse 5, for the transgression of Jacob is all this, and for the sins of the house of Israel. What is the transgression of Jacob? Is it not Samaria? And what are the high places of Judah? Are they not Jerusalem? So the two holy cities, one of Israel, the other of Judah, they weren't even immune to this. They were the source of it, almost it seems here. Verse 6, therefore I will make Samaria as an heap of the field. So Samaria being the northern kingdom, I will make Samaria as an heap of the field, and as plantings of a vineyard. And I will pour down the stones thereof into the valley, and I will discover the foundations thereof. Buildings will be left just only down to the foundation. You think of Jesus talking about the temple, not one stone left upon another. Verse 7, all the graven images thereof shall be beaten to pieces, and all the idols thereof shall be burned with the fire, and all the idols thereof will I lay desolate. For she gathered it of the hire of an harlot, and they shall return to the hire of an harlot. So, seems like, again, the source here of their wickedness, what they're being judged for, what their city is being destroyed for is evil, wickedness, maybe specifically idolatry. It seems here they've taken on the ways of the heathen. God has warned them about that over and over again, and they've fallen prey to it because they hadn't heeded his warnings. It uses the word hires there in verse 7, all the hires thereof, and then it talks about the hire of the harlot. I think those are wages, earnings, I guess maybe what's implied there. So it can not only beat down all the graven images, but all the money that came in as a result of it. And then, let's see, I'll flip to 2 Kings here. 2 Kings chapter 17, verse 6 says, in the 9th year of Hoshea, the king of Assyria, took Samaria and carried Israel away into Assyria and placed them in Halah and in Habor by the river of Gozan and the cities of the Medes. So this played out. Micah was telling of it, and it certainly played out, as he said. Samaria became like a heap of the field. Verse 8, therefore I will wail and howl. I will go stripped and naked. This is Micah warning, I believe, here of what's coming. I will make a wailing like the dragons and mourning as the owls. For her wound is incurable. For it is come unto Judah. He is come unto the gate of my people, even to Jerusalem. So what's going on up there in the northern kingdom, we're not even immune to it. It's coming unto us too, even up to Jerusalem. And this wound is incurable. 2 Kings chapter 17. So when the northern kingdom was taken, the Assyrians had victories in the southern kingdom as well. Took a lot of the walled cities, even up to the brink of Jerusalem at that same time. See if I can find the verse that was there. Reference. It talks about that. I'll continue on. Verse 10, starting here at verse 10, I think what we're going to see is this army of the Assyrians approaching into Judah, approaching up to Jerusalem. And so he's going to list a lot of these cities. And I think what's intended here is this is the march of that army, up to Jerusalem. Watch out what's coming, this city, and then the next city, and then the next city. Some of these cities, it's hard to tell where they are on a map. Some of them, they're all in the southern kingdom, in Judah. Some of them look like they were maybe around Jerusalem, so maybe this is an idea of the army kind of encircling Jerusalem. But there's going to be warnings to them. So first of all, it says, declare ye not at Gath, weep ye not at all. That seemed odd to me. I thought you're going to want to tell them it's coming. And he says, don't tell them it's coming. I think Gath is maybe a city of the Philistines. In 2 Samuel chapter 1, verse 20, it says, tell it not in Gath, publish it not in the streets of Ascalon, lest the daughters of the Philistines rejoice, lest the daughters of the uncircumcised triumph. So this is maybe, don't tell our enemies this terrible stuff is coming. We don't want them to get any joy out of this. Maybe that's the idea here. But he's going to go on and list some other cities in Judah. In the house of Ephraim, roll thyself in the dust. So there's mourning there in Ephraim. Pass thee away, thou inhabitant of Saphir, having thy shame naked. So just shame and Saphir. The inhabitant of Zaanannim, come not forth. So Zaanannim is not coming out. They're hiding in their city. In the morning of Bethesda, he shall receive you of his standing. I think some of the language here in Micah is interesting. I think the idea here is you're not going to get any help from the people of Bethesda. No support for them because they're in mourning. They're crying there in their city. Verse 12, for the inhabitants of Maroth waited carefully for good. They wanted something good to happen there in Maroth, but instead evil came down from the Lord unto the gate of Jerusalem. In 2 Kings, I don't know the verse I was going to read all ago. 2 Kings chapter 18, verse 13. Again, this is during Hezekiah. It says here, now in the 14th year of King Hezekiah did Sennacherib, king of Assyria, come up against all the fenced cities of Judah and took them. So he captured a lot of the cities in the southern kingdom, even up to Jerusalem. Verse 17 of 2 Kings chapter 18 says, and the king of Assyria sent Tartan and Rabsaris and Rabshakeh from Lachish to King Hezekiah with a great host against Jerusalem. And they went up and came to Jerusalem. And when they were come up, they came. So they captured all these cities, even approaching right up to Jerusalem. And I think that was the fulfillment here of these prophecies that we're reading here. All these cities being taken. Back to Micah, verse 13 says, O thou inhabitant of Lachish, bind the chariot to the swift beast. She is the beginning of the sin to the daughter of Zion, for the transgressions of Israel were found in me. So Lachish, maybe the accusation here, Lachish was the source of this. She was the first one that took on the sins of Israel in Judah, and then it spread from there. And he says, find you a swift beast. You better find a swift horse and get out of town. I think is the idea. Verse 14, therefore shalt thou give presents to Moresheth-gath, the houses of Axib shall be a lie to the kings of Israel. Again, what do those mean? I think this the presents here are intended to be like farewell presents. Give them presents. They're about to be leaving their city, and then a lie to the kings of Israel. I think. Let's see. I didn't write Jeremiah. Let's go to Jeremiah here if I can find it quickly. And what does that mean? They're a lie to the kingdom, the kings of Israel. Yeah, it says, Jeremiah 15, verse 18 says, why is my pain perpetual and my wound incurable, which refuseth to be healed? wilt thou be altogether unto me as a liar, and as waters that fail? So I think the idea here, maybe the city was a source of water, and it was not going to be able to provide that at all here. Maybe that's the idea. Verse 15, yet will I bring an heir unto thee, O inhabitant of Maresha, for he shall come unto Adullam, the glory of Israel. So he says, I will bring an heir unto thee. Generally, your heir is already there in your city, but bringing an heir unto you, unto the city, is bringing a new heir, a captive that's going to rule over you, I think is the intention there. And this Adullam, there was a cave in Adullam that was mentioned that where David hid out when he fled Saul. So I think that's maybe the general idea here as well, that Adullam was a place they were hiding. Verse 16, make thee bald, and poll thee for thy delicate children. Enlarge thy baldness as the eagle, for they are gone into captivity from thee. So again, a sign of mourning here for them, and it says, poll thee, or cut off your hair for your delicate children. And then it says, they are gone into captivity from me. I think the they is their children. The children were going to be taken away here. And so, chapter 1 was, I think, the foretelling of the capture of the northern kingdom. He attributes it to Samaria. And then those sins that spilled over into the southern kingdom as well, Judah, and their cities were going to be sieged, even approaching up to Jerusalem. And that's kind of the picture, I think, that Micah was painting here. And we saw that play out again while Hezekiah was king. Verse 2, woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it, because it is in the power of their hand. These people are so sorry that they're just thinking of evil things while they're lying, when they wake up in the morning lying in bed. And then before they even get out, they're just thinking of all these evil things they can do. Verse 2, and they covet fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man and his house, even a man and his heritage. God was very specific about whose land went to who, based on your lineage, and they had just disregarded that and just taken land by violence and things. Think of the vineyard, maybe of Naboth, taken by Ahab, possibly there. Therefore, verse 3, God's going to speak here. Therefore, thus saith the Lord, behold, against this family do I devise an evil, from which ye shall not remove your necks, neither shall ye go haughtily, for this time is evil. God speaking. Those are pretty fearful words coming from the Almighty God. And as he referred to him here, this justice that was coming was going to be against his family, so to speak, the children of Israel. Verse 4, in that day shall one take up a parable against you, and lament with a doleful lamentation, and say, so I think this is someone maybe imitating what they might say. This is a mocking. This is what these people are going to say when this happens. We be utterly spoiled. He hath changed the portion of my people. How hath he removed it from me? Turning away, he hath divided our fields. So I think the accusation here is towards God. I think the he there is God. Someone lamenting what they might say in that day. Verse 5, therefore, thou shalt have none that shall cast a cord by lot in the congregation of the Lord. This casting a cord seemed to be a way in which they divvied up things, maybe divvied up land. And I think this is saying, you're not even going to have a say-so in that. Somebody else is going to do that. You're going to be standing by, watching. Verse 6, prophesy ye not. This is what they would say to the prophets. Prophesy ye not. Say to them that prophesy, they shall not prophesy to them, that they shall not take shame. So don't prophesy, don't tell us that. It's bad stuff that is going to happen. That's the way they referred to the prophets, Micah and Isaiah and others. They didn't want to hear what the prophets had to say. Verse 7, O thou that art named the house of Jacob, is the Spirit of the Lord straitened? Are these his doings? Do not my words do good to him that walketh uprightly? So I think this is maybe in response, this is God just bringing this upon them. They were taking no fault in themselves. I think that the last line there is pretty telling. God saying, my words do good to him that walketh uprightly. But the accusation is, you're not walking uprightly here. And it's interesting, it says, those that are named the house of Jacob. It's not the true house of Jacob, but those that just go by that name. That's really all they were here. They were God's children in name only. Verse 8, even of late, my people have risen up as an enemy. So his people have become their own enemy. You pull off the robe with the garment from them to pass by securely, as men averse from war. These are kind of hard too. I think the idea here is, if someone comes back from war, they're going to be in rough shape, their clothes tattered and torn and down. And that's the way they were treating people in the city, just ripping their clothes off so that they resembled someone who's returning back from war. I think is the visual picture here. Oppression of the leaders and even their false prophets were oppressive. Verse 9, the women of my people have you cast out from their pleasant houses, from their children have you taken away my glory forever. God doesn't look away from people that mistreat women or children. Verse 10, arise ye and depart, for this is not your rest. So I think this is, get out of here. This land is not your rest anymore, because it's polluted. It shall destroy you, even with the sword of destruction. So this land that they trusted in, that they thought was their safe refuge, it was going to destroy them. It wasn't a rest for them any longer because of their sin. Verse 11, if a man walking in the Spirit and falsehood do lie, saying, I will prophesy unto thee of wine and of strong drink, he shall even be the prophet of this people. So they didn't want to hear what the real prophet said. These are the kind of prophets they like. Those that would say, just go about, keep drinking wine and strong drink. Those are the right kind of prophets for these guys. It seems. And as sorry as they have been, what's described here, mistreating women and children and just blaming God and not taking any responsibility for themselves, pursuing after these evil, idolatrous ways. Verse 12 says, I will surely assemble, O Jacob, all of thee. I will surely gather the remnant of Israel. I will put them together as the sheep of Basra, as the flock in the midst of their fold. They shall make great noise by reason of the multitude of men. The breaker has come up before them. They have broken up and have passed through the gate and are gone out by it. And their king shall pass before them, and the Lord on the head of them. So, when we talked about Hebrews, the Hall of Faith, Jacob talked about on Sunday, I found myself, and Jacob mentioned this too, you have some people in there that sin. I mean, not to the degree of this, obviously, those people were faithful, but, you have someone like Samson, you read Samson's story, and there's not a lot of redeeming qualities there that you come about in Samson, yet he's listed there. Just gives you a picture of God's mercy, how magnificent it is, and what's on display here, how he described how horrible these people were, and yet there's I will assemble of Jacob all of thee. How is that even possible? Of course, he talks about a remnant here, so he's talking about some that are going to get judgment, and some that will be part of that remnant. But it's just interesting that he can talk about judgment and then mercy. They're the same group of people, so closely intertwined here. I think the remnant is something that I thought was interesting here in this. I was thinking about, talking about the children of Israel, they were, when they were delivered from Egypt and they went into the promised land, and God gave them all the promised land, and that first generation that was there was they were pretty faithful. They didn't do all that God wanted them to do. They didn't get rid of all the Canaanites, and God said those idols are going to infiltrate into your families, and they did. But they probably felt like all of Israel there, we're the remnant. Compared to the world, we're the remnant. All of us here in the promised land. And then you see here, the northern kingdom was no longer the remnant. The remnant was the southern kingdom. And then after a while, the southern kingdom wasn't the remnant anymore. It's just Jerusalem. That was the only kind of leftover place. And, but then when God talks about the remnant here, he says, they're going to be like sheep, as sheep of Bozrah. Bozrah evidently was a city in Moab that was known for its sheep. In one place it talks about Moab was giving tribute to the king of Israel, was giving them 100,000 lambs, 100,000 woolen coats from rams there, and it seemed like the sheep in Bozrah were known to be plentiful, and that's what this remnant is going to be, plentiful number here. It says they're making a great noise. I think sometimes we can picture the remnant as just this kind of, weak little group that just, skated by. But this is a picture of blessings and prosperity for that remnant. And so you see on one side what history had done to the children of Israel. That remnant had gone from this, to this, to this, to this. And then on the other side, you see the remnant multiplying and growing. It's a pretty stark contrast, and we know the difference. The children of Israel were in bondage to sin. They couldn't shake it, and that's the natural progression, I think, of a carnal man, carnal world, is it's going to just be on the decline. But when Christ comes in and does away with sin, it's possible for that remnant to not follow that natural remnant cycle. It's possible for that remnant to grow and prosper in number, in quantity, in power, because our leader, the breaker, it says, he's passing through the gate, and we're following after him. Again, I think some of the imagery here is you had people in these cities that were kind of just holed up, thinking they were going to be okay, and the enemy would come in and destroy it, and the enemy would come in and destroy it. We think about the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem that's talked about in the New Testament. It says, if you're up on the mountain, don't go back, just get out of there. There's kind of that idea. And I think that's the picture we see here from the breaker. He's leaving, the enemy's coming in, and he's leaving, and we're following after him. We have, he's going before us, and we have victory in him, so long as he passes before us. He is the breaker out in front of us. Okay, that will conclude my thoughts. Thank you.
Scripture says we spend their years as a tale of their color. It's been said long days and short years. Sometimes it seems like the days don't go on forever, especially if you're doing this type of thing. And so, one of the things that, I thought about a lot in connection with David and Kings, was about, you had the good kings and the bad kings. And one thing that said over and over and over again is they departed, they followed in the footsteps of Jeroboam. And evil, fuck evil. Or they say they followed in the footsteps of David. And those are not his like evil. And so Jeroboam split off the kingdom, the kingdom was split, 10 tribes in the, north, 2 tribes in the south, Judah, and Benjamin. And why did they split off? Well, God came to Jeroboam and said, I'm going to make you king of 10 tribes first. He said, if you'll walk with me and follow after me, I'll bless you all the days of your life. Obviously, Jeroboam didn't believe me. So he split off and then they go to the calf down up in the northern kingdom. And why did he make you go to the calf? Because he wanted to hold on to his power. On the hold on to his power. Because he was afraid whenever we had Passover, that those that were in the northern kingdom would go back to Jerusalem. And so that Passover would get back with those people, and they would unite in the kingdom, and he would lose the power. There's a lot of that going on today. I think I'm pretty unanimous in this crowd, so I'd say that to all the Democrats want to do is hold them to it. We're not talking about right or wrong, or good or bad, or anything. All we need is hold them to it. And they're going to be blessed. Where they're going to be blessed. Okay? On the other hand, David, such a blessing to his descendants. He made mistakes, you know, you really agree with you said. And God, talking about his life, he said, he didn't turn aside from anything except that one thing. Was that you and your right people. He turned aside from that one thing. And you have a lot of consequences because of that choice. But overall, he walked with God. And even whenever they separated the kingdom out, the kings, he came to the center with Solomon. God came to Solomon and said, I'm going to split the kingdom because he turned your back. I appeared to you over and over again, and yet he married all these strange women, and he's going after idols. And I'm going to take the kingdom, 10 parts of the kingdom from you. But he said, I'm not going to do it during your lifetime. Well, he's not going to do it during Solomon's lifetime. How many blessings do you get? And we have thankful for. Passed down from generation to generation. Faith probably becomes like second nature to most of us. We find doubts about whether the scriptures are true, or whether God is real, or whether Jesus came, or whether he resurrected from the dead. There's not any doubts about anything. Because from the time we were little bitty kids, we thought that was true. And believed it. It doesn't matter whether we thought that it had PhDs and all that kind of stuff, or saying that they got rid of that, or we know better. So we had forefathers and fathers, and we're really faith. And hopefully the choices we made was blessed and good that there was a thing for us. But we need to walk faith in all our days. So it was a blessing for those that after us every sentence.